始まったかな。ナレーション打ててないし。ナレーション無視できちゃうゲームやる。ツイート。OK。さあ、やるか。ツイート見て。やばい、センシティブな映画普通。バンされる。あれ、ジャズがうるさい。ストップ。スタンリー・パラボー。スタンリー・パラボー。やっていきます。普通に始めればいいのかな。一応その前情報というか、ナレーション無視しても全然問題ないみたいな話は聞いてるけど、あと日本語かもっとは入れた。Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and 従業員427番。Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day. 俺多分この仕事得意だな。単純作業しかできない。Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. Stanley, 幸せでした。And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. あ、いける。ちょっと感度高い。マウス戦士。このくらいかな。ジャンプはできない。なんかレティクルがないからどこ触ってるかよくわかんない。まあいいや。同僚たちが誰もいなくなってしまいました。もうわかんねえよ。
俺何番やったっけ ?427 番やから。
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't
スタン
find
リ
a
ーがどんな
trace
に
of his
探しても、
co-workers.
同僚たちの手がかりを見つけることはできませんでした。いや、ちゃんと調べようぜ。特に何も触れないな。
スタンリー
はオフィスの中を隅々まで触ってまいりましたが、何か起きることもなく話が進むわけでもありませんでした。ナレーションの人がちょっと、痺れ切らせそう。お、切れたぞ。まあ特になんか調べられるわけじゃないな。はい、行こう。まるで実写。426番。お、なんかついてんぞ。別に押せないな。特に。そう、ジャンプができないのがなんか違和感ある。パソコンついとる。基本的にパソコン切っちゃうんだね。スタンリーオフィスのすべてのドアを一つ一つクリックしました。開いているドアから先に進むことに気づかなかったです。めっちゃ嫌味言われてますけど。あ、しまった。入った。しまった。そして彼は左のドアに入りました。勝手に決められるのなんかムカつくな。こっち行ったろ。会議室の正しい生き方でなく、スタンリーもそれを分かっていました。とりあえずじゃあナレーションの全部逆を言ってみようかな。天の弱やから俺。
Yes, truly a room worth admiring.
見事な
It
部
had
屋
really
で。
been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed
何の
room.
部屋だこれは。
Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
この自販機なんか。
Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
もうちょっとじっくりおろうかな。
At this point, Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on
グレーだとスタンリーについて気味が悪いほどで彼の人となりるからしていました。だからみんな出て行ったのかもしれない。めちゃくちゃ言われてるけど。もうちょっとおろうかな。
Stanley sat around waiting for more dialogue, but when a long time had passed and there was no more, he decided
もう少しで次のセリフが来る気がする。もうちょっとおろうかな。あれ、特になんもなくなってきた。まあいいや。 こう。
But at last, he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left
廊
to
下
get
の
back
左
to
側にある
business.
最初のドアを通りました。これか。入ると、見せかけてドーン。
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't
スタンには
fired
言われ
years
た通り
ago.
にするのがとても苦手でした。指示されたこともできない人間だから。
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong
What?
foot here. I'm not
う
sure.
わー
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one
あ
gets
れ
to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform
死んだん
and
だ
plunged
け
to
ど。
his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
えダメだったんだ。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a
いや
memo.
もう、死ぬんだこのゲーム。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he
わあ、
entered
じゃあ
the
さっきと
door.
同
This
じ。
was not the correct way to the meeting
同じ
room,
道
and
行こう。
Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
ここまで巻き戻されるのか。
Yes, this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
ここはまっすぐ行って、
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not
落ち
sure.
たら死んじゃう
Really, I'm not. I realize that investing
私
your
は敵じゃあ
trust
り
in
ません。
someone
君が
else
他人を
is
信じるの苦手な
difficult,
の。
but the
あ、こ
fact
れいける
is
くね
that the story has been
これ
about nothing but... What? Really? I was in the middle of something. You have zero consideration for others.
マジかよ
Are you that
話の途
convinced that I
中だ
want
っただろ
something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side.
私にチャンスをください。うん。
Now
Oh.
listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked
スタンリー
through
は
the
赤い
red
ドア
door.
を通りました。青いとこ行くわ。
Aha, perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door.
戻されるんだけど。青いドア通る。お、
I still don't think we're communicating.
ヤソップの息子さんが来てく
Stanley
れた。
walked through the red
スタンリー赤いドア
door.
を通りました。これしかなくなっちゃう。あ、青いとこ行こ
All
う。
right, fine, go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there? You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen?
めっ
Well,
ちゃ怒っとる
let
ぞ
me start.
ナレーションの人。これ。
You see, there's nothing here. I haven't even finished building this section of the map because you were never supposed to be here in the first place. Broken rooms, exposed
マップは
developer
完成
textures. Is this
し
what
てい
you
ません。
wanted? Was it worth ruining
Ah.
the entire story I'd written out
柄悪いな。
specifically for you? Do you not think I put a lot of time into that? Because I did. And in the end, it was all for nothing. Because this is what you wanted to see. Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours.
君のその得体の知れない欲求の正体を
What
教え
did
て
you
ください
want。to see? Vehicles? Skill trees? Work with me. You've given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you what. Let me take a stab in the dark at a new design and you can give me some feedback. There we go.
Oh.
A third option. This already feels leaps ahead of where we were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin.
アリサ一人かわいそう。まだ言っとる。ちょっとね。まあでも、後々またちょっと配置とか変えるから。配置とか変えるときに、でも全員揃えなあかんのか。
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version. Would you say that the game benefited from allowing you more choices?
選択
Feel
肢が増えた
free
こと
to
で
be
このゲーム良
honest.
くなったと
I'm
思いま
looking
す
for
か？
some real critical feedback here. A 1? I mean, I can understand if you had reservations, you saw ways the game could be improved to more fully express itself mechanically and artistically, but a 1? That's not even helpful. What am I supposed to do with that? But I guess it isn't my place to judge.
ナレーションの
Here,
人うんざりし
based
ま
on
っ
the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be perfectly candid, I think I've knocked it out of the park with this one. Let's take a look.
た。The Stanley Parable リーダーボード。はい。今度こっちの扉行こう。あれ戻ってきた。
Would you say that competitive leaderboard helped you feel motivated to keep walking through doors? Again, honest answers, please.
1点。
Hey, I nearly forgot. I've got a prototype of a new game I've been
私
working
が
on.
取り組んでいる
And now
新しい
would
ゲ
be
ー
a
ムの試
lovely
作品があ
opportunity
るん
to
で
give
す
it
が。
some playtesting. You wouldn't mind taking a look at it, would you? Perfect. Let me boot it up. In this game, the baby crawls left towards danger. You click the button
赤ちゃんが炎に向かって左にハイハイしていきます。ボタンを押すと赤ちゃん右に戻ります。作造との旅行楽しかった。楽しかったよ。めちゃめちゃお金使った。美味しいもん食べて UFO キャッチャーやりまくったな。ダメ。ちょっと。やだ。声がやだ。なんかブリブリ落とす。ずっとこれやんの？だから次、押さんとこ。赤ちゃん。この冷血野郎。
Because if it's the latter, well, I don't know what to do. I'm completely out of ideas. I can't think of a single thing that might improve the experience for me. I'm not even going to try. I'm out.
めっちゃ怒っとるやん。
It's over. Thank you for playing. Your input was extremely valuable. Oh, hey, since my game was so awful, why don't we play someone else?
私のゲームはひどすぎたようなので、気晴らしに誰か他の人が作ったゲームをプレイしてみませんか？
Yes. This seems like it'll work. Let's give it a shot.
おい、これ。あかんやろ、これ。私が全く関与していないゲームが登場しました。でも、このゲームジャンプできないから、ここしか通れん。単に私は家を建設します。何も動かせへん。お。家作っとんのこれ。
Let's see, what does it need? Yes, of course. And just to finish it all off, yes. It's complete. I made this, Stanley.
私の芸術作品を見て自分の不甲斐なさを恥じてください。
And feel ashamed at your own inadequacy. But you've only seen it from the outside. You've only gotten half the experience.
どうぞ中に入ってくつろいでください。
And make yourself comfortable.
もう2マスしかないよ、こ
れ。Isn't it grand? Isn't it perfect? It could only be better if... Wait.
ダイヤモンドで作り直そう。
We must rebuild it out of diamond.
採掘に行かなくては。これジャンプできないから。お、壊れた。すげえ。マイクラや。別にマイクラがやりたかったわけじゃないけど。
Oh my. It looks like it's going to get a bit dark. Have you brought a light?
バリア持ってない。 しょ、よいしょ。
Oh, no, 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 no. This is far more open-ended than I had in mind. I'm looking for something more
私が
narrow
探しているのは
and
もっと一
linear.
本道
Something that
で、
makes you feel utterly
君が
irrelevant.
全く介
This
入でき
won't
ない
do
も
at
の。
all. 1 out of 5. Even the diamonds couldn't save this one. Okay, new game.
お、なんか聞いたことある、これ。俺、ポータルやん。
I don't even know what this game is, but I love it. You
うわー、懐かしい、これ。ワンやん、ワン。
Oh, it's inspired. I couldn't have done it any better myself. What is this game even supposed to be? I can't figure it out. Okay, now I'm curious.
いいのかな、これ。
Let's go find out what the hell this is.
湧いた。いや、おお。いやー、懐かしい、この挙動。もう完全に。
It's a puzzle. Critical thinking, Stanley.
あれ
Your forte. Genius.
完全にポータルやった、これ。
No, actually, you know what? I think that's plenty. I really don't care much to see you stumble through anymore.
ああ。ああ。あ、うわー。どこだ、これは。急にホラゲ。開かねえぞ。これ行くとこなくない？お。お。なんかあるぞ。あれ？別に触れるわけじゃないのか。お。
I wonder what he found. If what he wanted was to be the
彼は
leading
何を
man
見
in
つ
his
けた
own
んだろ
story,
う。
well, perhaps he's gotten it. Down in wherever he is right now. I wonder if he's happy with his choice, and if he's learned the heavy cost that comes with it. He'll understand soon what I was trying to tell him. He needs me. Someone who will wrap everything up at the end, to make sense out of the chaos and the fear and the confusion. That's who I am. That is what I mean to this world. Oh, yes. Yes, I'll be back. There's no other way. Once this ends, after it all comes to a
だから
close,
全てが終わった
then
ら
I'll be
私は
back.
戻ります。
The end will be here soon.
終わりは来るでしょう。
Very soon. I can wait.
はい。え、最初に戻ってきちゃった。電話？
Hello. This is a recorded message scheduled either by you or a person in your place of work. The purpose of this message is to warn you about the dangers of recorded messages. If at any time you believe you are listening to a recorded message, please terminate it immediately and cease all flow of information from the recorded message into your perceptual sphere. Thank you, and have a pleasant day. なんて言ったか全然わかんない。
When Stanley came to a set of two open
2つのドア
doors,
2の
he
前に来
entered
ま
the
した。
door on his left.
今度は全部ナレーション通りに行ってみようかな。
Yet there was not a single
会議
person
室に
here.
は誰もいませんでした。
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
会議室か。お、何これ。
Stanley stepped into the broom closet.
スタンリーは掃除用具入れに足を踏み入れました。
back on track.
しかしここには何もありません。そしたらなんか一個くらい触れる。
There was nothing here.
ここには何もありません。選択肢もなければ進むべき道もない。ただの空っぽの掃除用具入れです。ここにいる理由は何もありません。いやいやいや、とか言って、なんか持ってきるっしょ。スタンリーが掃除用具入れに未だ居続けることは不可解でした。ここでは何もできません。動かせるようなものでもあったので話は別だったのですが。ナレーションちょっと怒ってきとるぞ。本当にまだ掃除用具入れにいるつもりなんですか？何もしないでずっと？なんで？何か説明をしてください。純粋に理解不能なので。いやー、なんかあるかもしれないじゃんね。これね。
You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to
め
mention
ちゃ
it.
くちゃ怒っとるね。
Maybe to you this is somehow it's
これがルート分岐の一つだと考えているんでしょうね。友人にこのことを話す。こう言うんでしょう。
Did you get the broom closet?
掃除用具入れん
The
と
broom。closet ending was my favorite.
めたいな、このゲーム。
Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really
ス
stupid.
タンリーが太っていて醜くて正真正銘のバカ野郎だった。
That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
やばい、ナレーションがめちゃくちゃブチ切れとる。そんな怒らなくていい。
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now.
あなたは死んでいます。
You got to this broom closet, explored it
あなたは掃除用具入れに到着し、少し探索して何もなかったので出て行こうとしたその時、何らかの病気があなたの中枢神経を破壊し、
Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. He or she has fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place at the computer, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
しょうがねえな。廊下に出てやるか。
Ah, second player. It's good to have you on board.
と見せかけてドーン。
Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again.
じゃあ進めるか。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked
階段登
upstairs
って
to his
上司のオ
boss's
フィスに
office.
向かいました。お、めちゃくちゃいい部屋だ。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of
その
any
気配
human
が
life.
全くなかった。
Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
もう一回言って。
Stanley simply began entering random codes into the keypad, knowing full well the sheer statistical unlikelihood that this would ever result in a correct combination. If he knew that the combo was 2845, it would be another story entirely. But no, this is what he was going to do. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
ここに通路ある？あそこか。うわー、これ昔のエレベーターだ。怖くて嫌いやこれ。
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
エスケープってあるけど、これ生きてー、これ。なんか、このルートはちょっと全部言いなりになろう。いや、怖っ、これ。
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
どういう部屋だよこれ。特に何も触れないな。これは
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
常に監視されていたのです。あら、なんか。これ番号何だっけ ?424... 427だっけ忘れた。これ。
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content, walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
なんか押せんのかな ほっほっ。マインドコントロール。うわっ。
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty,
System
his
power.
obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it
オ
stood
フにした
for.
ら、この施設の電源が切られるのかな。じゃあオフにしたら、なになになに。
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
行くぜ。
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen.
なんかハッピーエンドっぽい
And
けど。
Stanley was happy.
さっきでもバッドエンド見てるからな。ああ、戻ってきた。電話鳴ってるぞ。
Hi, Stanley. Just wanted to leave you a message to let you know there's a few things I need you to pick up on your way home from work today. We need milk, cereal, dish soap, spaghetti, get a thing of sugar, some bread, and
何言ってるかわかん
coffee
ねえ
beans, whichever ones
よ
you。like. I'll give you a call if there's anything I forgot. Thanks, sweetie. See you tonight.
次はどうしよう。両極端のルートは通ったから。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door
今
on
度
his
じゃあ、どうしよう。今度どうしよう。
Yet there was not a single person here
ここは
either.
一緒でしょ。
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's
こ
office.
こじゃあ下行って
Coming
み
to
よ
a
うか。
staircase, Stanley walked
階段登って
upstairs
上
to
司の
his
オフィスに向
boss's
かいまし
office.
た。じゃあ下に行きましょう。
But Stanley just couldn't do it.
それは
He
スタンリーには
considered
で
the
きませんで
possibility
し
of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy.
た。あれなん
And
か
then
同じ
something
道じゃな
occurred
く
to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations.
同じ道通ってる。
Why couldn't he see his feet when
ど
he
うして足
looked
元に自
down?
分の足が見えな
Why
い。
did doors close automatically behind him wherever
ど
he
うしてトイレの
went?
時はドアが入
And
る
for
の
that
か。
matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply
確かに。
repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to
確かに
the
FPS とか
conclusion
も
that
下
had
見て
been
も何
on
も
the
見え
tip
な
of
い
his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming! He yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an
ルー
explanation.
プしてる。
His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
飛んでる。
Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical star field, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now hearing the voice was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
同じとこだ。
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
マリエラという女性の物語です。
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
死んでもらった。それで終わり
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
次どうしような。いろんなルートがあるっぽいね、これ。選択によって。
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
ここで、
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. The lounge was sublime, a work of art. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
通らずに行って。
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time.
前はこの下のルート行ったけど、じゃあ
There's
今
someone
度
you've been
は
neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself, to put your work aside, to let her back into your life.
なんか暗く
She's
ね。
been waiting.
うわ
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her. If you can truly place your
でも取っちゃった。え
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
おお、何
Gotcha! Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see
めっちゃ
something.
バカにされて
Come
る。
inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
キーボードのロックを押してください。
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
B。
But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
おう
And so he began to
Oh, tricky.
fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
難しい。ディナーの準備するには発注をしてくる。
As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many
なんか
possible
作らせてくれへ
paths
ん
and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby.
願望の
And
ゲ
he
ームがある
called
ルー
it
ト。
the
さっきやっ
Stanley
たよね。
Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it. You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
疑問を捨てるには G を押してください。
I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
死んだ
Wait, Stanley thought to himself. Am I sure that the orders stopped coming in? How is that
なんか
possible?
文章変わって
They
る。
never stopped. Surely I was mistaken. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Standing now in this incredible room, Stanley for the first, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
どうしような、今度。ここ通ってみるか。
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track. Yet there was not a single person here
もう
either.
戻ってきたな。
Feeling a wave of
正しいルート。
disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he coming to a
下行っ
staircase,
たらなんか
Stanley
おかしなこ
walked
とになるから、
upstairs
今
to
度
his
上行
boss's
くか。
office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But
こ
of
れ
course,
さっき
Stanley
打っ
couldn't
たけど、今
possibly
度打たなか
remember
ったら
this.
どうなるんだろうか。
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was
2845ということを知る
2845.
由もなかったのだから。知らないふりしとく。
2845.
こえてない、聞こえてない。
Forgot, but it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself. And Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
ひどい。結局なんか選択してもしなくてもなんか一緒じゃん。ここはでもさっきやったルートだよね。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind
じゃあ
Control
エスケープを言ってみ
Facility.
るか。
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
この奥で待ち構えているのはスタンリーの非常の死なのですが。
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
いや、俺は行くよ。
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
うわー。死んでないまだ。
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life.
死にたくない。
Farewell, Stanley.
うわー。うわー。うわー。
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
おー。えThe Stanley Parable.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
はあはあはあ。これ正解引いたもしかして。
Stanley pushed the orange lever.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't...
What?
This is the story of a
やべえ、ちょっと
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
お産切りゃよかっ
Stanley
たか
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
いやあのまま死ぬんかな、じゃあ。
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
会議室行って、
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. The moment he entered his manager's office, Stanley froze in his tracks. Not a living soul anywhere. Could he really be all alone? This was too much for Stanley to take. Too much for any man to... Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy. So he relaxed for a few moments with some calming new age
開け
music.
ろよ。ドゥンドゥンドゥンドゥンドゥン。
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
ここで、これいろんなルートがあるな。難しい。面白いよ、これ。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind
Escape,
Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death. As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Wow.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start? Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time...
んだ。うん。んえ、だからそういうことなんだ。もうあのルートに行った時点でもう終わりなんだね。これ何をもって、何が全クリなんだろうか。どれが正規ルートなのかよくわかんないけど、ちょっとまた調べてやろう。終わりまーす。